So maybe I should start with the name BlaBlaCar and why we have such a funky name. When you actually sign up to the service, what you need to do is you create your profile and you give your preferences as a driver or as a passenger. And one of the preferences you have to pick is how much you talk in a car. So we have this thing called the chattiness index, and that's where you decide if you're a blah, 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 or blah, 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 essentially. So that's where the name comes from, and it makes a lot of sense for the community. So what do we do? What's BlaBlaCar? So if you think of a driver today who's driving from, let's say, London to Manchester here in the UK, the real cost of driving those 200 miles from London to Manchester is actually something like £90, 45 pence per mile, I think, in the UK. And that's the cost of petrol, that's your insurance, that's all the taxes you pay, that's the depreciation of your vehicle. So essentially, it's a lot of money. Driving an empty car between London and Manchester is very expensive. Now, what's interesting is when you do that, you end up carrying with you, like this guy, 3 empty seats. So what's the value of an empty seat between London and Manchester? So I checked that on the train line, actually, and if you do that tomorrow, on Friday, it's about £130 per seat. So that guy is actually carrying lots of value. So what we do is we created this marketplace for passengers and drivers so that drivers could offer the empty seats and passengers could actually book these empty seats. And by doing so, we create a new transport network, and we create a very low-cost transport network, very sustainable transport network, and also a self-organizing transport network where drivers and passengers just meet. So in the early days, it made people think of hitchhiking, which obviously was not that great for us because with hitchhiking came the notion of disorganized, not safe, and not a great service, right? So we had to work on all these issues, and the service or the product we've built actually took care or addressed all these problems by allowing the driver to pre-plan their journeys, allowing the passengers to actually book online and pay online for these seats. And we also created like a very strong social layer so that you're not traveling with a stranger. You have like social profiles, you have Facebook connections, you have pictures. You have also lots of trust features. So for example, we verify the mobile numbers, we verify bank accounts, credit cards when people pay online. And we also, of course, allow peer reviews between members. So today we gathered something like millions of peer reviews between our drivers and passengers. So in a way, if you think of it, we're actually building two things. We're building two assets. The first one is a new transport network all over Europe, allowing passengers essentially to travel between cities at very low cost all over Europe. And it's essentially a self-organizing transport network. But we're also building something else. We're also building a large community and a trusted community that today is using the service for transport, but in the future might use the service for something else. So I'll show you where we are in building these two assets in terms of putting some numbers on that. In terms of transport network, last month actually we had 1 million people traveling with BlaBlaCar. And that's pretty much as the Eurostar. So next year we'll transport probably more people than the Eurostar in Europe as a transport network. So it's getting massive, and it's really something that works all over Europe. And it's powered by people, and it's powered by this community that's right now growing very fast all over Europe. And we have 5 million people in that community sharing rides all over Europe. Now, how do we make money, or how do we monetize that? Very simply, we take a commission on these transactions. So passengers are going to book a seat in a driver's cars, very much like they would book a plane ticket or a train ticket, and we take a commission on that transaction. So out of these hundreds of thousands of transactions, we take a small fee. And I just wanted to make one point about taxi versus what we do. Actually, 2 points. One is we are a bit different in two ways. I mean, first of all, we really address long journeys. So we're building an intercity transport network, and not really like a taxiing service, like companies like Halo or Uber do in the US or here in London. And we also end up essentially having several bookings per car, which is a bit different. So we think in terms of seat inventory and seats transacted, and not so much in terms of rides. So I'll go through quickly the funding story and the BlaBlaCar story. So the real commercial start was around 2009 when we had the first employee. Back then, the service was only in France, and we were building the marketplace on the French market. 2010, we had the first round of financing with Isaïe, French VC, and we started to expand internationally because we recognized the fact that if we don't do that, essentially we're going to end up only being a transport network for France, and we're only going to be a marketplace in France. So we decided to expand geographically pretty quickly and to increase our footprint pretty quickly. 2011, we launched the UK. In 2012, we raised $10 million from Accel Partners, and we started to accelerate the expansion by acquiring a company in Italy, acquiring a company in Poland, and really expanding the network pretty rapidly. 2013, earlier this year, we launched Germany and Austria, and earlier next year, by the end of the year, we launched Russia and Ukraine. So essentially, over the last few years, we really expanded the service and created all these marketplaces in different countries to really build a pan-European transport network. So why is it important to expand so quickly, and why did we decide to expand so quickly? The problem we had initially was we are a very local marketplace. So essentially, if we had stayed in France, we would have built only a marketplace for France. So we decided to very quickly expand in different geographies. And I'll show you in numbers actually what happened. So what you see here is the number of new members joining the service every month. So it's not the size of the community, it's really new people actually joining the service as drivers or passengers. So that's what's happened in France, and we took the funding from Accel actually about 18 months ago in January 2012. And since then, we expanded lots of other markets with Spain, UK, Italy, Poland, Germany. And what happened is, today, we have 2/3 of our growth is actually outside of the home market, which was France. So in a way, by creating these marketplaces very early in different countries, we've been able to really grow the footprint of that transport network. And today, more than 2/3 of that is really outside of the core market. And I guess if I come back in a year, I hope we'll have tens of millions of members, and that France will be probably 10% of that growth. So with that, thank you.